When I used to think about how my life might change if I became a mom, the one thing that I was sure was not going to change was my love for adventurous travel. In my imagination, I saw myself with a baby and a snuggly strapped to my chest while I climbed the Mayan pyramids. So it was only fitting that when I did become a mom, it involved travel, all the way to Vietnam to adopt a 2-year-old girl named Locke. My husband Ray and I were so excited when the head of our adoption agency, Linda, called us and said, come in for the travel meeting. Now, Linda had been to Vietnam a bunch of times. I figured she'd have tips on where to go and what to see. No. We were there with 3 other couples. We'd all be traveling together to get our babies, and Linda went over all the paperwork and meetings and appointments we'd have in Vietnam to finalize the adoptions. We were all mostly first-time parents, and in her warm maternal way, Linda answered all of our most pressing questions, like, were we going to have Wi-Fi on the trip? And then one of the dads-to-be asked this question. So Linda, for that 14-hour plane ride back, what should we give the kids to knock them out? Is Benadryl okay? Well, Linda got this look of like horror on her face, like, I cannot believe I approved you all to adopt children. And then in her warm maternal way, she told us, under no circumstances will you be drugging your babies. So 2 weeks later, we're at the departure lounge in Dulles, and we all start joking around, like, hey, who brought the Benadryl? And someone else says, well, if you did, don't tell Linda. And don't tell Linda became the catchphrase of our entire trip. It started right away on the plane because it's a long flight, and we may have been drinking a lot. And we'd raise a glass at each other across the aisle, and we'd be like, don't tell Linda. Or once we got to Vietnam and we were making like every new parent mistake, or all those nights when we were like holding our babies, pacing the hotel hallways with these kids that would not stop crying because we were strangers to them and they were a little afraid of us. And we'd look at each other and we'd say, don't tell Linda. And Linda was right. There was no time for sightseeing. We were very busy with meetings and appointments. Until like the last few days of the trip, we had some downtime. We'd had our interviews at the US Embassy in Hanoi, and we were just waiting for our kids' paperwork to be cleared so we could bring them back to the US. And I thought, you know, Halong Bay is not far from here. We could do one of those overnight cruises. Now, if you're not familiar, Halong Bay is this huge bay in the northern part of Vietnam. It has this emerald green water and the thousands of these limestone formations. Some are like 10 feet high, some are hundreds of feet high. It looks like the place dragons come from. So we went to the hotel concierge and she said, well, you know, I work with 3 companies, luxury, mid-range, and budget. And I was like, luxury? We are adventurous travelers. But then I thought, budget might be a lot of smelly backpackers. Let's do mid-range. So the next day we go to Halong Bay and we find our mid-range boat and it looks fine. And pretty soon we're out into the bay and I mean, it is just spectacular. Well, after a few hours, the captain steers the boat into this little cove at the base of one of the tallest limestone formations. And he tells us there's caves about halfway up if we want to go explore. Well, yeah. So just like in my dream, I put Locke in the snuggly, I strap it on my chest, I hop down off the boat, and everyone else follows. And we go up and we hike through these caves, and again, it's spectacular. Well, it's time to go back to the boat, so we hike down, and that's when I notice two things. One, there are a lot of boats in the cove now. And two, the tide has come in. And our boat is way out in the water. There's no way they can send a dinghy to get us. It's too crowded. And the captain's on the deck, and I see him. He's going like this. And then he's going like this. And I realize that I am going to have to wade out to the boat with this precious baby I've waited so long to get strapped to my chest. So that's what I do. I start wading, and pretty soon the water's up to my knees, and then it's up to my waist, and Locke's little legs are dangling, and it just keeps rising. And just when I think it's gonna go over her head, I get to the boat. Well, now I have to figure out how to get on the boat because the deck is way up here at this point. Luckily, the captain has a ladder. Okay, it's a rope. And I am climbing the rope and just praying, like, please, God, this would be a great time to give me that upper body strength I've always wanted. And Ray, he's like down there in the, chest-high water like this. Like he's gonna catch me and the baby if I fall. I don't know. But I managed to get onto the deck like the most ungraceful way possible. And all the other parents get on with their kids, and then we head straight to the bar. A few drinks and a really nice dinner later, we decide, we're chill, let's call it a night. We go below deck and look for our cabins. Ray puts the key in the door, flips on the light, and there are roaches everywhere, on the walls, on the bed, on the floor. I don't know how many, a bazillion of them. It is a horror movie. And I turn to Ray and I say, I wonder if everybody else's room. And then I hear this series of blood-curdling screams all the way down the hall. Yeah, everyone's got roaches. So we meet in the hallway and we're like, what are we gonna do? And one of the moms, she's like, goes full on mama bear, and she's like, I'm gonna go talk to the captain. So she goes above deck and she comes back a minute later and she's sputtering. I told him, we can't have the babies sleeping in these rooms with all these bugs. And he said to me, it's okay, madam. As soon as we turn off the lights in the kitchen, they're gonna all go right there. So we did our best. We made like these little tents out of sheets that tucked in the edges, and we left the lights on all night, and we stayed awake on roach patrol. And the next morning, none of us wanted to have breakfast from a kitchen where roaches had been partying all night. And it was gloomy, and it was rainy, and Halong Bay had lost all of its charm. I just wanted to get off that boat and go home. So a few hours later, we're back at the harbor, and I'm carrying Locke. We're walking down the gangway, which I notice is just a cracked 2x4. And I look over at the luxury boats, and I say to Ray, maybe we should have done that. Or maybe we shouldn't have done this at all. Or maybe we shouldn't travel again until Locke is in college. I don't know. But I do know one thing. We are not going to tell Linda. Thank you.
Suddenly make it all seem worthwhile. Once you got and you should know.